when the rock industry program started, in terms of who was the guy that they used to implement mainstream rock and roll, and that man was Elvis Presley, and he was a program slave, and his programmer was his own manager. His name was Colonel Tom Parker. And many other mind control handlers have been around him. Chris Christopherson used to brainwash people before he became famous. Jerry Lee Lewis used to do the same thing, and so did Willie Nelson. And so these guys have done some very evil things to people that a lot of people are not aware of. And they live in a world that a lot of people have no clue of. Everybody has their own versions of these men. There's been movies and articles and things written about them, but this is a very false view of what they see. These men are not country or down-to-earth people or people of the people. They're Illuminati family members who've been silver spoon-fed their whole entire lives, and they are very much here to promote an agenda. So many of the movies and shows use these type of slaves, as I mentioned with Elvis. They're known as monarch slaves because the type of programming that they were inflicted with was known as monarch programming. So many of these slaves are actors and performers. Many noted ones are Roseanne Barr, Bette Midler, Marilyn Monroe, Loretta Lynn, Crystal Gale, Wayne Newton. He was a child singing prodigy who never wrote a check for himself in his whole life, just to give you a clue on that. They used lots of slave handlers. Frank Sinatra was a slave handler. Peter Lawford and Bob Hope are also slave handlers. And the difference between a slave handler and a slave programmer is that once a programmer has done his job, it's the handler's job to enforce the programming. And so they keep them in line. And occasionally they use programmers such as Anton LaVey and Jerry Lee Lewis in case other programming breaks down or they got to go and program somebody else. And so and the Illuminati was given this repeated task to use this to brainwash the masses. And so when we look at Elvis Presley was a multiple programmed by the Illuminati. A multiple is somebody who has split personalities. And this is developed through demonic possession. And so we know that at times he went by code names, one which is probably known as John Barrows. His group called the Memphis Mafia have talked about his ability to go into altered states of consciousness and even seem dead. Recently, another Illuminati slave also stated that Elvis was an Illuminati slave, meaning that his specific alignment in Elvis's eyes was to the Illuminati, and to which he understood it as such, and to which usually many slaves would probably know the Illuminati under a different name, until they reached the society within a society. But Elvis was already in deep in that society. There are some interesting things pointed out about Elvis. He had a twin brother that died at his birth, and that Elvis knew that this gave him double spiritual power according to Illuminati beliefs. So what happens is that when Elvis's twin brother died, there's an Illuminati legend that if you were born with a twin brother and your twin brother dies, you receive his occult karma or power too. So this is what fueled the ego of Elvis Presley in the occult. He started to see himself as godlike or a god among men. And so the Illuminati will often kill a twin so that the other will get the power of two souls, because they firmly believe in that. So it could have been possible that at that birth, Elvis's twin brother was ritually sacrificed so that this belief would carry into Elvis Presley himself. So from what we understand, Elvis Presley's handler programmer was a colonel named Tom Parker. Elvis belonged to a team of 4 Illuminati men, high-ranking members as well. Elvis is publicly known to have studied yoga, numerology, drugs, and received some New Age spiritual training in an academy overlooking Pasadena, California. And he was an active member in the Theophilosophical Society. Now, the Theophilosophical Society was the society that gave birth to Hitler's occult training. Once again, Hitler's occult training. This was the same occult Elvis Presley received a degree in. To give you a very good insight into Elvis Presley's mindset. Elvis Presley was a very racist, superior-oriented man. He had Illuminati beliefs. He believed in the Illuminati. He really had no room for compassion and kindness to man. He one time said a very cold statement that a lot of people want to say that he was misquoted or misunderstood. I want to say that he was not misquoted. He was very much understood. They accused him of taking a lot of his music from African American artists, and his comment was that the only thing niggers can do for me is shine my shoes. That's how Elvis Presley looked at people. He had a very arrogant view, an ignorant view on people, and he was not somebody who was a person of the people, or a man who embraced all cultures. He was fulfilling an agenda and a purpose. He was demon possessed, and much of his musical inspiration was coming from the demonic. And so in Monarch programming, the use of mirrors is a basic important tool to make split personalities, and to which the mental mirrors which are programmed into the victim create thousands of alters, which are known as artificial personalities, which then can be programmed in whatever way the Illuminati programmer wants. So they use mirrors to initialize demon possession. And these mirrors will represent each demon as they look into it, and mirror images will come. It's their image, but the evil inside of their image starts to come clear through the mirrors, and so the demons seem like they're coming straight out of the mirrors of each personality, and they enter into the child. The child must learn to match identical items very early, even before he or she can speak. This is so that they will be able to build mirror images into their mind when they have to be confronted with this programming. So all the senses are trained for building the mirror images from birth. For instance, such as silks and cottons can be used for the sense of touch while they're initializing an actual image. So the elements that make up who a person is, personality elements such as memories, they become fractured. And so these fragments have in turn often been built up into full-blown personalities. With all the elements of full-blown personalities, there's no real person. And that's what happens. A fake person is developed. In fact, multiple fake persons are developed. So when you're dealing with a celebrity, it's hard to know whether if you're dealing with the real person or you're dealing with a multi-personality that they're using in their acting or in their performances. And so as there's being no real person, they smash a mirror into 1,000 pieces much after toward the end of this programming, and there's no single piece that is the real original mirror, but rather simply fragments that can turn and operate as mirrors, so that this creates early splits, and these early splits are straight to the core, which provides a lot of split personality and a lot of mental insanity within the person. This develops depression, anger, malice. This develops a very conditioned person, but a person very reliant upon their mind control handlers. And so mirror programming is very painful on the mind. It actually shatters the mind. It actually destroys the mind. And it actually leaves the mind bleeding after the effects of demon possession, because there are so many alters in a person's mind, and they can see them in like a mirror image, and they talk to them, they scream at them, they yell at them. These are literally demons that have been ingrained into their thinking. And Jimi Hendrix, who went through the mirror programming, one time wrote a song that really reflected the pain of demonic possession and what he was going through. And he said that I used to live in a room full of mirrors. All I could see was me. Well, I took my spirit and I crashed my mirrors. Now the whole world is here for me to see. I got a whole world that's here for me to see. Now I'm searching for my love to be. Broken glass was falling in my brain, cutting and screaming and crying in my head. Broken glass was falling in my brain. I used to fall on my dreams and cut me in my bed. I said making love was strange in my bed. So what the effects of the mirror programming did to Jimi Hendrix was that he felt like there was pieces of glass in his head, and he felt like every time these demons would try to get their way or incite a haunting, he felt like somebody was cutting his brain from inside. So it's a very painful experience, and it's one of the type of experiences that many monarch slaves or celebrity idols have to go through, into which they see it as paying a price.